The war over Iran, a story of escalation for years, the Middle East lived under a growing shadow. It did not begin in a single night. The tension had been building for decades between Iran, Israel, and the United States. Iran had expanded its missile programs and influence across the region, supporting allied groups in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Israel saw this expansion as a direct threat to its survival. The United States, which had long been Israel's closest ally, also worried about Iran's growing military power and nuclear ambitions. Diplomats tried to prevent a confrontation. In 2015, the world signed a nuclear agreement with Iran known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, meant to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for economic relief. But the deal slowly collapsed after the United States withdrew in 2018, and Iran began expanding its nuclear activities again. Trust disappeared. Negotiations failed again and again. By the early 2020s, the rivalry had turned into a shadow war. Cyber attacks, assassinations, and covert operations became common. Iranian nuclear scientists were targeted. Iranian-supported groups launched rockets toward Israel. Israeli intelligence sabotaged Iranian facilities. The conflict rarely appeared as open warfare, but everyone in the region knew the tension was growing. Then came the chain reaction. The war in Gaza beginning in 2023 reshaped the region. Israel fought Hamas, while Iran's allies across the Middle East became involved. Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, and other groups connected to Iran increased their attacks. Israel responded with airstrikes and military operations across several countries. The entire region began moving closer to direct confrontation. In June 2025, the situation exploded into a brief but intense conflict, sometimes called the 12-Day War, when Israel launched major strikes on Iranian targets. Iran retaliated with missiles and drones aimed at Israeli cities. For several days, the world watched as two powerful enemies attacked each other directly. A fragile ceasefire ended that round of fighting. But it did not solve the deeper problem. By early 2026, intelligence reports suggested Iran's missile program and nuclear research were advancing again. Israeli leaders warned that waiting any longer would allow Iran to build weapons capable of threatening the entire region. On the morning of February 28, 2026, the conflict entered a new and far more dangerous phase. In the early hours before dawn, waves of aircraft and missiles struck targets across Iran. The operation was carried out by Israel with support from the United States. Military sites, missile bases, air defenses, and leadership compounds were hit in a coordinated attack. Within the first hours, nearly 900 strikes were launched across the country. The goal of the operation was clear: weaken Iran's military capability, disrupt its nuclear program, and eliminate key leadership figures guiding the country's strategic decisions. One of the most dramatic events of that first day was the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who died in the strikes in Tehran along with other senior officials. His death shocked the region and created an immediate leadership crisis inside Iran. For Israel and the United States, the attack was meant to change the balance of power. But Iran did not remain silent. Within hours, Iran began launching missiles and drones across the region. Some targeted Israel directly. Others aimed at American military bases and allied facilities in countries such as Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Air defense systems across the Middle East activated simultaneously. Missiles streaked across the sky. Fighter jets scrambled from runways. Radar stations tracked incoming threats across hundreds of miles of desert and sea. The war had spread beyond a single country. Cities across the region felt the impact. Israeli cities faced incoming missiles. Gulf states activated emergency defense systems. Shipping routes near the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which a large portion of the world's oil travels, became extremely dangerous. The economic consequences were immediate. Oil prices jumped as traders feared the war could disrupt global energy supplies. Airlines canceled flights across the Middle East. Governments warned their citizens to avoid travel in the region. Meanwhile, inside Iran, the human cost of war was becoming visible. Airstrikes destroyed military facilities but also damaged surrounding areas. Fires burned in fuel depots and industrial sites. Thick smoke covered parts of Tehran after explosions at oil storage facilities. Residents described toxic clouds and dangerous air conditions spreading through the city. Hospitals struggled to treat the wounded. Families fled damaged neighborhoods. Hundreds of thousands of civilians across the region were displaced as fighting expanded beyond borders. International reaction was divided. Some governments supported Israel and the United States, arguing that Iran's missile and nuclear programs represented a serious threat. Others criticized the attacks, saying they violated international law and risked creating a much larger war. European officials warned that the conflict could destabilize the entire international system if it continued to escalate. But on the battlefield, events moved faster than diplomacy. Iran continued launching waves of missiles and drones toward Israeli targets and American facilities. Israel responded with additional airstrikes on military infrastructure across Iran. Military commanders on all sides prepared for the possibility that the war might expand further. The most dangerous question facing the world was simple. Would the war remain limited, or would it draw in even more countries? The Middle East had seen many conflicts before, but this one involved some of the most powerful military forces on the planet. Modern missiles, advanced air defenses, drones, and cyber warfare all played roles in shaping the battlefield. And behind every missile launch, behind every strike, there were ordinary people. Families hiding in shelters, soldiers standing at radar screens, pilots flying missions in the dark. The war was not just a geopolitical struggle. It was a human story unfolding in real time. And like many wars throughout history, it began with years of fear, mistrust, and political conflict. But once it started, controlling it became far more difficult than anyone expected.